Hello, I'm Daryn and welcome to another episode of MyToolboxTV. Today I want to talk about NFPA 70E. Kind of a controversial thing for a lot of people. I want to talk about why you want to do this. Why would anybody want to wear this hood? Why would anybody want to wear this Category 2 FR shirt all day long? Well, NFPA 70E requires that we utilize this type of PPE when it's required, when the exposure calls for it. Now, a lot has changed in electrical safety in the last 25 years, if you've not noticed, even the last 5 years, even the last 10 years. When I first started as an electrical maintenance person back in 1984, just a young 20-some-year-old kid, we didn't have a lot of safety stuff. We didn't have a lot of safety meetings. I was never in electrical safety class. The first electrical safety training I ever was a part of, I was the instructor. So 25 years ago, we didn't do any electrical training like that. Well, a lot has changed. I'll never forget my first day on the job at this, it was a foundry in Terre Haute, Indiana. First day on the job, my boss says, "Hey kid, for 2 weeks you got to work with Bill. Bill's our top electrical guy. He's the smartest guy we got when it comes to electrical stuff. Do everything he tells you." Well, one day we're out on the plant floor and we're standing in front of a 600 amp disconnect. And Bill says, "Kid, when you turn one of these things on or off, don't stand in front of it. Stand off the side, use your left hand, and turn your head. It might not hurt to duck a little bit too." I said, "Why, Bill?" He said, "Well, sometimes these things blow up." What? It's the first I'd heard about this. "Yeah, sometimes they blow up." I said, "Why?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, how much does it blow up?" He goes, "You never know how much it's going to blow up." So, that was good information. I still do that today. It's great information, but the problem was back in 1984, that was all we knew. That was it. That was the whole class on arc flash. Well, today we know more. Me and Bill were probably wearing polyester disco shirts at the time. Well, now we know we need to wear this stuff. We need to sometimes wear this stuff to protect ourselves. So if you look around your plant and you're still doing things like 1984, you might want to rethink about what's going on. A question I get a lot, and I travel the country all the time speaking on 70E, the question is it the law? Does OSHA require? Well, it's not the law. It's absolutely not the law, and that doesn't matter. You know who doesn't care if it's the law or not? That's OSHA. OSHA's writing citations all over the country all the time on 70E stuff. But they're not saying, "Hey, you're getting this citation because of 70E." They're writing citations because OSHA requires you to protect people from electrical hazards. OSHA requires you in 1910-132 to do hazard assessments for hazards in your facility. 335 requires PPE for electrical hazards. 333A requires specific safety-related work practices for electrical hazards. The thing that OSHA doesn't tell you is how to accomplish all that stuff, because they realize they're not the experts. The experts are people like the National Fire Protection Association. That's why in 1976, OSHA asked NFPA to create 70E. So when OSHA wants to know the best way to protect your folks from electrical hazards, they don't read the OSHA book. They look at NFPA 70E. It's the recognized best practice right now for protecting people in general industry from electrical hazards. Sometimes I hear people say things like, "Well, we're not going to do 70E here because it's not the law." And I say, fine, don't do it. Don't do it because it's not the law. Shred your book. But then I got a question, what are you going to do? You got to do something. You can't just sit back like it's 1984. You have to do something. How will you determine what PPE to provide? The OSHA book doesn't tell you. How will you know what work practices to provide? The OSHA book doesn't tell you. How will you know how to do the hazard assessments? The OSHA book doesn't tell you. So how on earth would you accomplish what the law does require without using something like 70E? Are you going to write your own electrical safety book? I don't think so. So 70E is simply the way, the guidelines, the way to doing what the law says that we need to do. There's one reason, and one reason alone, to implement 70E at your workplace. And that's to prevent injuries. It's to prevent injuries. Don't do it for compliance. Don't do it for compliance. There's lots of things that you can do and do fairly quickly to make your facility look compliant. You know, go throw up labels, go, you know, do all kinds of things, buy some cheap FR clothing, some whatever. But you won't be protecting anyone. So when you implement 70E, do it for the reason to prevent these injuries. And every step of the way, whether it's the training, the labels, the clothes, the tools, the practices, all of this, keep in mind every one of those steps has to be done with the idea that we're going to prevent injuries, not compliance. If you prevent the injuries, compliance will happen. Another mistake that some people make is they say things like, we're not going to do 70E here because we don't do live work. We have a no live work policy. And your heart's in the right place. I like that. I like the way you're thinking, but you still need 70E, and here's why. Lockout tagout process for electrical people. If you're going to contact a de-energized component, which is defined as a component that a while ago was energized, you have to go through the lockout tagout process. And it's different for electrical people. Electrical folks have to take a voltmeter, test it, make sure the voltmeter is working properly, then test the circuit that you think you've just turned off. And then after you've tested the circuit to verify that isolation has occurred, then you have to retest the meter. Well, guess what? All of that is live work. All of that's live work. The testing the meter before is live work because you're doing it on a live circuit. The testing of the circuit you just shut off is also live work. It's live work because you haven't proved it's not yet. And of course, testing the meter afterward is also live work. So in order to do no live work, you have to do live work. So it's kind of a catch-22. So that's not an excuse to get us out of doing 70E. Just to wrap up, everyone needs to do 70E. Every factory, every facility needs to implement 70E. It's something that it will protect your people and help prevent these injuries. Don't do it for compliance, do it to prevent injuries. OSHA requires us to do all of these things like hazard assessments and provide PPE and work practices, but they don't tell us how. 70E has those instructions on how to get that done. You cannot cover everything that's in 70 in 1 or 2 or 3 or even 10 videos. So we'll do a few more videos about 70. We'll get into some of the more of the practical hands-on stuff that maintenance people need to know in the upcoming episodes. Once again, thanks for tuning in to another episode, and we'll see you next time.